Sister takes my ex's side, and I'm stuck living in my own garage while they destroy my life right in my own house. Promised she'd always stand by me. In 2022, I was able to sell my house in one state, use the equity to buy a house cash in another state. Right before I sold the old house, my ex, who is in no way a love interest for me anymore, we have been split up for over 10 years and, in fact, he is gay, needed a place to stay because he had lost his job and his apartment, and I felt bad for him and allowed him to move in. A short time later, I sold the house and moved 4 hours north, and since my ex still had nowhere to live, I allowed him to move with me. This was my first experience buying a house cash, as the previous one was done through a conventional mortgage. At the closing, which was in July of 2022, I was told that since they didn't know how paid up the taxes were, that if I were to owe any taxes on it, that I would get written notice with a bill from the town by the end of August, and that if I didn't, that means I didn't owe anything. I was like, okay, and naive to this, and took it at face value, since with the other house, the taxes were rolled into the mortgage, and I never had to worry about any of that. So come August, I never got any notice about owing any taxes whatsoever, so I went on with my life. In the interim, my ex was supposed to be looking for a job and getting his own place, but instead, he was laying around doing nothing. I have a business and work from home, but was barely scraping by with having to pay for his meds, his food, etc. And plus the utilities here were way higher than anticipated. So I started to get on him to get a job. A little backstory on my ex: he is a narcissist and an ex-meth user. Not using ever while we were together, but since we had split and he found his gay self, he was doing all kinds of very dumb, irresponsible things. And yes, I'm an idiot who felt bad for him and allowed him to move in, but I was unaware of just how bad he had become and how lazy and verbally mean.
So I felt stuck at this point. So now I'll move on to the main reason for my post. I know, living with the gay ex who used to do meth and has no job isn't the main reason? Lol. No, sadly not. I don't need to ask if I'm the asshole in that situation because, yes, I'm an asshole for not kicking his ass out sooner or for ever letting him move back in the first place, but he's the asshole for thinking it was okay to use me. So I'm pretty confident in that situation, but you needed to know the things above for me to move forward. My sister, who lives 5 states away, called me and was telling me how she kicked her narcissistic husband out of the house, and she is getting divorced. Narcissistic husbands run in the family, apparently. And she is an alcoholic. Although 12 years sober, it had taken a toll on her liver and her overall health. She's 10 years older than me. We weren't overly close, but out of everyone in my family, she was the one I was closest with. She was concerned about not being able to live by herself and make it on her own, so I immediately told her she can move in with me. I had plenty of room in the new house. I was happy to be able to help out my sister. She had a daughter that lived with her, but was just graduating college, and I was under the impression that this adult daughter would be going on to do her own thing. But then months later, I find out that her daughter, my niece, hadn't seen her more than 4 times in the last 15 years, is now moving in with us too, but supposedly only temporarily, and then she would be moving to Florida with her friends. So fast forward about 8 months later, once my sister's lease was up, she was getting ready to move in. The only issue was she was having problems getting everything packed up, so I offered to come there a couple days prior to the official move-out date from her condo and help. I flew out there just to find out that nothing was packed. My sister seemed so tired and weak that she was useless in helping with much, and her daughter, 26-year-old health adult who had an entire year to prepare for this move and help get things packed, had done nothing. So for 2 days, I had to pack up an entire 3-bedroom condo on my own, while her daughter packed the rec room and played on her phone. She hired some guys to come pack the truck the day she had to be out there, and it was a close call that we even got her out of there in time. I drove the truck with my sister the 14-hour trip back to my house, and her daughter drove her car.
On the drive, I had talked to her about how I was happy she was moving in and told her that, since the house was paid for in cash, that if something were to happen to me, I want her to have the house. And if something were to happen to both of us, I would want to leave the house to her daughter. She said how she was so happy to know she had a nice home, a safe place with family, and that she was also there for me, and we would be a team and be there for each other as the years go by. And I agreed. Being that she was so much older than me, we never really lived together, not since I was like 7 years old. She went to college and got married, etc., and I never lived with her as an adult, so it was like moving in with a stranger, if you think about it. But all I knew was I was happy to be there for my sister. So before they moved in, my ex had gotten a job about 6 months prior, so finally, he was making money. Knowing him, the only reason he got that job was because he knew my sister was moving in soon and he likes to keep up appearances as being Mr. Responsibility, so I can look like a liar if I had told my sister he was lazy and jobless. Typical narcissist stuff. My sister's portion of paying rent in the house was to pay the utilities, which is all I asked because that is what would help me out most right now. She is getting almost $4,000 per month alimony from her ex, who makes close to $130,000 per year. And the utilities are about $1,000 to $1,200 per month. So soon after my sister moves in, about 6 months in, she winds up in the hospital because she decided to over-medicate herself on benzos, which caused her to have seizures and land her in the hospital for a month to where she almost died. Apparently, her addiction issues were not just about alcohol, and every time she goes to the doctors, I always hear her say she hasn't had any addiction issues in over 12 years. I guess she doesn't count the pills. But thankfully, she made it through all that, talked about how grateful she was to have me in her life so she doesn't have to grow old alone. She is 60 years old by TW. But things at home were not great because her and her daughter are constantly fighting, and my sister will immediately call me to get in the middle of these fights, which I did not want to do and hardly ever would do, and in turn, my sister would give me the cold shoulder for a day or so. I did, however, get in the middle if ever my niece was being disrespectful or mean, and I had more than one talk with her about her selfish behaviors. It was so odd how self-centered my niece was. I just wasn't expecting that from her when she moved in. I know my sister grew up having everything handed to her. She was the only one who went to college, and my parents made a big stink about it and paid for her entire 5 years of college, and then paid for her elaborate wedding with 200 guests and even bought her a brand new car as a wedding gift. And no, me saying that doesn't come from jealousy of my sister because I was literally 13 at the time she got married, so I thought nothing of it. But my parents had no interest in paying for my college, wedding, etc., mostly because they had pissed all their money away in Atlantic City by the time I was ready to graduate high school. So I knew the problem there wasn't my sister, but with my parents. Dysfunctional in the dictionary has a family photo of us in it. So when my sister would be fighting with her daughter, she knew that I was not afraid to speak my mind, so she assumed I would do all her dirty work for her. She assumed I would be the bad guy so she wouldn't have to be. But no, sorry, I wasn't going to come in and try and help raise her adult daughter by putting my foot down on someone who is 26 years old and shouldn't be acting this way to begin with. Besides, I hardly know this kid. She may be my niece, but due to my sister's inability to keep up with family relationships over the years, likely stemming from her hidden alcohol abuse, I wasn't given the chance to get to know her. And believe me, I tried. But her ex was a real dick who thought he could fool everyone into believing he was such a nice guy when all he was a narcissistic ass munch. I never liked him from day one. So my sister whined about her daughter constantly, and me being someone who runs as far away from drama as possible, I mean, I live so very far from my whole family for a reason, I couldn't stand the constant fighting in the house. It was bad enough that having my lazy ex there was causing fighting in the house. So my sister wanted me to ask my niece to leave, give her like 90 days notice, of course make me do my sister's dirty work, but this time my sister's using the fact that she just got over being in the hospital and can't take all of this fighting, blah blah. So I did it. I told my niece she had 90 days to find another place to live. Long story short, haha, too late. She moved out and in with her boyfriend 800 miles away. But months before that even happened, I had gotten my tax bill for the year, so I take the cash down to the tax office to pay it, and it's there that I'm told that I owe not just this year's, but I also owe last year's taxes. You know, the ones where I was explicitly told I would get a bill for last year in August if I owed anything. Yeah, I never got a bill. Turns out, because the previous owner of this house used to rent it out a lot, he had all the important documents and bill come to him at his other residence, which means that he got the tax bill last year and just decided it wasn't important enough to forward it to me. He is an asshole. Even in dealing with him and his realtor when buying this house, I got to find out just what kind of asshole he was, yelling on his realtors all the time, refusing to fix things when he rented the place out. A real fuckface kind of guy. So I was standing there at the tax office just bawling because how stupid am I? I felt so incredibly embarrassed and overwhelmed and just devastated. And they wouldn't let me pay for the 1 year. Oh, no, no. Now they wanted both years together. I even found out there was a tax sale on my house that I had no idea happened, but I was also told that it sounds worse than it is and I still have plenty of time to try and get this resolved. So now I had to come up with almost $9,000. And I had to come up with this money prior to 6 months, or then I would owe almost $14,000 because another year's taxes would be added on. What a mess. On top of it, my car died. The only car we had in the house. So we had to buy a car. I knew having the $9,000 in 6 months would never work. But I knew it was more possible to have the full 3 years, which is around $14,000, would be maybe doable if we all, myself, my ex, and my sister, all saved up each month over the course of more than 12 months time frame. When this was brought up to my sister, she kind of acted like it was not her problem, which, no, technically it wasn't, since I did live in the house almost a year before she moved in. I never asked her for any help. I just told her what was happening, and she just acted like she couldn't afford to help out. I thought that was a bit strange considering how much money she had coming in, but I let it go because I had other issues I was dealing with. So, my sister's health is way better now than it had been. Her liver function is way better, and she is acting much more like a normal, healthy person, not sleeping all the time and able to do pretty much anything she wants, which includes smoking a lot of pot. But hey, it's better than her popping pills or drinking, I guess. The issue now, though, is my ex, who I haven't emphasized enough in this story, is a complete and utter asshole. He verbally and emotionally abuses me on a daily basis, and unfortunately, now I'm stuck in a situation to where I have no choice but to keep him around because without my sister's help with this tax situation, it's myself and my ex's problem to come up with the money, and that's rough. We now have a car payment, health insurance, which is steep for both of us, my meds. I failed to mention that I have health issues of my own stemming from having cancer back in 2015, car insurance, 2 phones, food, etc., and this ever-growing, very expensive pot habit that my ex has that he refuses to cut back on. And since he is horrible with money, I had to start having him send me his paycheck, aside from $75 per check for his pot or whatever, just to make sure the bills got paid. But the problem is, he is a narcissistic liar who loves to do deceitful things like taking loans out of his paycheck without my knowledge, so that by the time I actually get the money from him, it's sometimes half what it should be. On top of that, he refuses to help out around the house. He's a healthy, 50-year-old man who won't do anything at all to help keep the house clean, or even mow the lawn every couple weeks. Nothing. He won't even clean his own room. My sister lives in the upstairs of the house, and she doesn't help with anything either. Neither of them have physical ailments, and I have a bad back. And right now, I am hobbling around because I have something wrong with my ankle, and I finally went and got an x-ray, but 2 weeks later, and I still haven't gotten any results. Supposedly, my doctor hadn't gotten the results, even though the radiology lab said they sent it to her 3 times. I'm hoping Monday I'll get some sort of results. But anyway, my point being, out of 3 people in this house, the 2 who are the most physically healthy to do chores around here are doing nothing, and I'm doing all of it. So much for coming together, right? Because of the fighting between myself and my ex, I was bullied out of the main part of the house. I now live in the room above the garage because otherwise I am yelled at 24/7 by the POS who lays on the couch 24/7 if he isn't at work. If I, God forbid, mention that it would be nice if he helped out around here, especially considering that for 2 years I took care of him as he came off meth and had no job. I get screamed at that I'm dwelling on the past, then told I'm nothing but a cunt and I should go back upstairs and fuck off. But here's the kicker. My ex sits out on the porch to smoke pot, and my sister decided to also sit out on the porch and smoke pot. And every time they're out there together, they're laughing it up, having a good time, sometimes for hours. And sometimes I have gone out there to get the mail or etc., and if my ex yells at me, my sister says nothing to him. In fact, she has told me that she won't get involved in the issues between him and I, even though I would never involve her, and I'd never ask her to get involved. But what I did ask her of, I asked her on the trip in the truck when she moved here. I said this exact thing. Do me a favor, send so-and-so, don't want to name names, is the type to talk about me to others just to try and garner sympathy because he loves to be a victim. Can you please just tell him that you would rather he didn't discuss the problems of mine and his with you because it makes you uncomfortable? And she agreed that is how she'd handle it, and I had nothing to worry about because she wouldn't allow him to talk crap about me to her. And again, a reminder, he's gay, and that's no secret, so this has zero to do with anything sexual or etc. But all I know, if the tables were turned, and I lived with her and her asshole husband, and he yelled at her constantly, even if I didn't get involved, I certainly wouldn't be sitting on the porch with that asshole smoking pot having a good old time. In fact, if it were me and my sister's husband was yelling at her, saying the most god-awful things to her, just because she asked for some help around the house, I would immediately tell him right where to go. I'd not be able to stand by and watch him do those things to her. But the bigger issue is, I was wondering why ever since they had been pot buddies out on the porch, I'd say about 3 months and about the same time frame that I've been living above the garage, why is he all of a sudden even a worse asshole to me? And after talking to a friend of mine who is a psychologist, she suggested that with him being a narcissist, if he were to be getting some sort of validation from someone, especially my own sister, it may make his ego grow even bigger, enough for him to lash out even more. In other words, if he was confiding in her about things concerning me, regardless of how untrue the scenarios are, if my sister were to give him any indication that she agrees with him, that would fuel a narcissist to double down on his arguments with me, because now he has his victim's own sister giving him some ammo. So, about a week ago, I had to take my sister to one of her doctor's appointments, and in the 1-hour drive home, I tried to gently explain to her that her hanging out with him on the porch is causing me stress, because somewhere he is taking your being nice to him as being complicit to how he treats me. I didn't mention nor accuse her of potentially allowing him to talk about me and her possibly agreeing with him. I just asked her to maybe not utilize him as a pot buddy because it was causing some stress for me because ever since this has been going on, he's been treating me way worse, and that I really don't like having to live above the garage in my own house. Well, she got defensive, which I thought was a strange reaction, and immediately the whole thing became about her, that she has no friends and how she needs someone to talk to and it's the only time she gets outside. To say the least, I was dumbfounded. So I repeated to her, okay, but your need for a friend is coming at my expense. I've had to move over the garage because of it, because otherwise I am berated and dehumanized by him. And I'm sorry, but just because I don't smoke pot doesn't mean you can't come and talk to me. I am your sister after all, and all he is some asshole who mooched off me for years and now causes me great stress and has caused me to become very depressed to the point that I go to sleep every night wishing I would just not wake up. Is that worth it all to you just for a pot buddy? She agreed to cut back on hanging out with him, and that was the end of that. I still felt some kind of way about that. Putting myself in her shoes, I would be very concerned for my sister's well-being, and if my friendship with her ex, no matter how innocent, was causing her any stress, it would be over, no need for any explanations.
So, over the next week, I didn't notice her cutting back on her interactions, so I did an asshole thing. I put a small recording device outside and recorded what was being said. And just as I thought, when my ex said something about me, in which he of course lied about the situation, she would chime in. For example, and I'm only going to give one example, even though there is more than one including one, where the ex said something derogatory about me and my sister thought it was okay to laugh along with him. One of the conversations was about how one Friday I called him because it was getting late and I was wondering where he was, and he said he was at the dispensary. I got mad because he had been taking out these loans from his paycheck and they get taken out every payday, reducing his pay significantly because there is interest tacked onto them. And his pot smoking is so out of hand because he smokes pot like it's a cigarette. I leave him with $75 every paycheck for his pot, and if he needs more than that, he is going to have to learn to cope, because trying to save money for the taxes is almost impossible with all this going on. I work, but due to my health issues, I am limited. So even though I have my own business, I only make about $300 to $500 a week. But anyway, what he told my sister was that I take all his money, and he doesn't know where it gets spent. That's a lie. He knows exactly what it's spent on, down to the penny, and I don't even leave him a dime of it for himself, to which he proceeds to tell my sister, "Don't you think I should be entitled to like even $50 of my own check?" And my sister, of course, agreed and seemed appalled that I would not give him anything from his own check. And the kicker is, weeks earlier, I told her that he had been taking out these loans, which are upwards of $300 to $500 per month, but all in smaller increments. So he might take out $100 here or $50 there, use them to eat out every day, and buy a lot of pot. And on top of that, coming out of his pay, I'm leaving him another $75. And I wouldn't have even thought about recording the conversation at all if it weren't for my ex's big mouth. During more than one argument with him, he would say things like, "And I'm not the only person in the house who agrees with me." So unless he is having two-way conversations with the damn dogs, there is only one other person in the fucking house. But I know he likes to lie like a rug, and I wasn't about to accuse anyone of anything without proof, because somehow, regardless of having some truly fucked up parents, I don't believe in accusing someone without proof. So that's why I felt I had to know what was going on firsthand. So that's the first AITA question. Am I the asshole for recording one of their porch pot sessions, given the context of the situation? The next AITA questions comes from this. So I had yet another argument with the ex a few days later. I still had not revealed that I had taped their conversation. And as most of them do, I'm left in tears, but this time he was even more vicious than normal. I immediately texted my sister and told her about what he said and how I felt, and that I needed my ex to move out ASAP, and that it looks like I'm going to have to sell the house because I can't possibly get out of this tax situation with the ex sabotaging my every plan just to be an asshole and with her not wanting to help with the taxes. And she responded to me that I should have discussed this with her before I decided any of this, to which I replied, "This is the discussion." But honestly, I don't feel I need to discuss anything with her, especially when she views everything that happens in this house as not her responsibility. And that's what I told her. Instead of her being concerned for me in the least, she was worried about whether I discussed this with her first. What kind of response is that? How come it seems like every time I need some sisterly compassion, she somehow makes it about her? So I finally told her how I felt, without trying to be overly nice about it. I told her that she claims she doesn't want to get involved between me and my ex, yet it's okay for her to decide to involve herself whenever she feels like it. And that's when she denied getting involved, and man, did that make me mad. I came out and told her that my ex had told me that she had agreed with him regarding something I supposedly did to him, and that he lied. And she came back and said, "Well, if he is a liar, why would you believe him?" And then I did what I like to call the mic drop. I told her, "Well, see, That's exactly what I thought. So I decided it's best for me to hear it from the horse's mouth, which is why I got a small recorder and put it on the porch and recorded you sitting there listening to him bitch about me and then sympathize and agree with him. So why then are you lying to me? And why are you doing the exact thing that I ask you not to do, which is get involved, and when he starts talking shit about me, to tell him you don't want to hear it?
And of course, after that came a phone call, and I picked up, and she tried to lie to me. She tried to say that I asked her to get involved. Well, I was livid at this point because that was a bold-faced lie. See, when her and her daughter would fight, and my sister would bring her daughter all the way downstairs just so she could have me witness it and try and ultimately get me involved in the argument, her daughter would say things like, "Why are you now spinning the story in another direction just because we are in front of her," meaning me? And now I know why she said that. My sister thought she could win the argument by completely spinning the entire thing around on me. And when I started yelling at her saying, "I'm not your daughter and you can't lie your way out of this," she hung up on me. I messaged her about how she better put herself in my shoes and really think about how awful it is to be talked about behind your back, and how would she like it if I had done that to her. She doesn't even like it when her own daughter talks to her ex. How would she like it if I sat there and buddied up with her ex every day, most times right after her ex dehumanized her right in front of me, and then I went outside, proceeded to smoke pot and laugh it up with that monster? Would that make you feel good? Of course, I got no response, not for 3 days. Then, on the third day, my sister pulls up in a new used car. I live in the room above the garage, so I see everything. I knew my sister was socking away cash to get a car. It was one of the reasons why I couldn't understand why she wouldn't offer to help with the taxes. Not like she didn't have the money, but instead of rescuing our home that we live in and need, she decided to purchase a car. And this car, based on my calculations, cost her about $10K, and that's lowballing it. It's a 2018 Chevy Equinox LTZ in pristine condition, and she doesn't have good credit, so I know she paid cash. She always talked about when she had enough for a car, she would pay cash. Later that day, after never acknowledging anything to do with her lies, she has the balls to message me saying, "I'd love to show you my car today, see what you think of it," smiley face. Like, what? Are you fucking kidding me? Look, I get wanting your own car, and for 6 months she couldn't drive because she was diagnosed with epilepsy from that benzo stunt and her 30 days hospital stay. But I've always taken her anywhere she wanted to go, and we have 2 cars in this house now, since the ex got a car recently. So it wasn't like she couldn't go somewhere when she wanted. But she never goes anywhere anyway. She just stays in her room and watches TV. She has no job, nor will she ever have one, so I'm wondering why buying a car was more important than saving the house we live in. That money could have saved this house and we wouldn't have to move. A move which will be very hard on me physically, since I will have to do all the work on my own. And if she thinks for 1 minute that I'm letting her move with me, she is out of her mind. I'm sorry, but you want me to take care of you as you get older, sicker, but you don't ever want to have any responsibility to this home or to the sister who is the one who took you in and would have absolutely taken care of you and already has taken care of you? Seriously? In what world? So that's the second AITA question. Am I an asshole for being pissed that she A, never apologized for talking shit behind my back with my ex, and B, knowing that I was going to lose my home and she had the means to help, but instead she bought a car, cash? I hope that fucking car will keep her warm at night, because if she thinks she's coming with me when I move, she has another thing coming, and she has no one else to turn to, so I don't know what she thinks she is doing. But I really need to live alone and stop thinking I can be there for others because, man, I didn't get screwed once, I got screwed twice here between my ex and my sister. Unless I'm just an asshole. I don't feel I'm the asshole here, but if I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong. And the general public chiming in on this may help me from going insane. I'm sure there are things I left out, but it was a long story, and I am definitely an asshole for making it so long. So I apologize for that. But if you have questions or need further info, I'll be glad to clear anything up if you are not understanding something. But thank you so much in advance for reading this.